Unexpected expenses. We all face them at various points in our lives. Retirees often face a lot of unexpected expenses too, and there are some common themes among those unexpected expenses. So, what are the most common unexpected expenses that retirees face? Stay with me. If you have the good fortune of working with a good financial advisor, they should be preparing you for many of these expenses in the years leading up to retirement. But if you don't have the fortune of working with a financial advisor, or maybe your financial advisor overlooked this, you may not get the message. So I'm going to speak as if you are a client sitting in my office and tell you what are the top things that you need to be prepared for. You may know some of these things. Some of these things I can guarantee you don't know, but they're common among a lot of retirees. First thing, taxes. A lot of people automatically assume that when they retire, their taxes will be lower. I can tell you, especially for my clients, probably in about 40% of the cases, that's just not true. They're in the same tax bracket, or in some cases, they're actually in a higher tax bracket than when they were working. Now, if I work with a person years in advance, I can see this problem building and we can come up with ways to mitigate this. And there's a variety of strategy. It could be a Rothization strategy. It could be what bucket to pull from first in retirement. It could be delaying Social Security or delaying the taking of a pension. If I know it and see it well in advance, we can mitigate this. But sometimes I get a client who's maybe a year out from retirement and there just isn't much time, or there just isn't enough resources to really head this problem off. And they've created basically a tax bomb for themselves in retirement. One thing that you need to take into consideration, and one thing that you need to learn a bit about in retirement, is taxes. You need to know how your Social Security will be taxed at the federal and state level. Some people have annuities, some of those are taxable, some are not. You need to really take some time to go through your situation and understand what your tax responsibilities will be in retirement and if you are prepared for it. Ideally, you would be looking at this anywhere from 7 to 10 years before you retire. And if you see that something is going to be a tax nightmare, that's an opportunity to speak to an accountant or a financial advisor to figure out a way to head that off. A good example, I have clients who are high income earners and who have a lot of money in traditional 401k accounts. They're 62, they're considering retirement, but they realize if they start taking Social Security and they need to take money out of their 401k to make ends meet, that's a lot of taxable income. So we take a look at their overall portfolio to see if there's other places we can pull money from. Maybe they have a brokerage account and they have some investments that have grown, but the basis is pretty high. And instead of taking that money from Social Security, we can delay Social Security. So maybe we can burn down some of the money in their 401k, take Social Security later, and make up the difference with money from their brokerage account. So it can be complicated to figure out the tax situation. This is not what the knowledge that the average Americans have about taxation and the tax system to make this happen, but it's something that really takes some retirees off guard, that they don't know how their retirement will be taxed. And in case they don't know how their retirement will be taxed, they may end up in a serious tax situation inadvertently in retirement. Next are medical expenses. Now, most retirees and most people know that their medical expenses will climb the older they are. I think that many people know that already. What a lot of people don't realize is that Medicare doesn't, of course, cover vision or dental, and a lot of people go into retirement with serious dental issues. For example, I have a client who I've had for many years now. He was one of my original clients, so I had him about a decade. This entire decade, he's had problems with his teeth, and I have been encouraging him during the entire decade to get to a dentist and start working immediately on all of those dental issues. He just didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to do it. And in the lead up to retirement, within a few months of retiring, he decided to go to the dentist. And it turns out he needs about $25,000 worth of work, some pretty extensive and time consuming work. Some of that can be covered by his dental insurance, but of course he loses his dental insurance when he retires. So now he's faced with the problem that he may have to work longer in order to be able to have all this dental work done, or he may have to pay for some of this dental work out of pocket. For dental, I really strongly suggest that the best defense of this is a good offense. If you can go to the dentist regularly while you were young, every 6 months, get cleaning and checkup and get on top of any potential issues, that's the best way to lead up into retirement. Do not wait to have extensive or expensive dental work done in the months before retirement. You really need to have that done years before retirement. I have had clients who've had extensive dental work done in maybe a year before retirement, and the process just went much longer than they thought. They needed time to heal. The first procedure didn't work, so it required a revisionary procedure. The dentist got in there and realized that the damage was more extensive than he or she initially thought. And then it ended up running over into the point that the person was retired and the person just had to cover it out of pocket. Dental is just one of those medical things that catch people total off guard. Take care of your teeth. Take care of your teeth while you are young. And if you need dental work, get it done years before you retire. Don't wait until the run up right before retire to get your dental work done. Another thing are meds. People assume that their meds are 100% covered by Medicare, and that's simply not true. Depending on the medication that you're on, it may not be covered by Medicare, or it may be only partially covered by Medicare, and you may have a copay of hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars if you have an experimental medication or a brand new medication per month. And a lot of people are caught off guard thinking that if they have Medicare Part D, Medicare is just going to basically cover everything. Once again, the best defense is a good offense. Take care of your health while you are young. The clients who can really limit the amount of medications they're taking leading up to retirement, or don't take any medications leading up into retirement, are the ones that are in the best form to deal with this. But if you do need medications and you do need extensive medications, make sure you understand what Medicare will and won't pay and what your responsibility will be for copays on these medications. A lot of people don't know this. I was shocked when I saw the number two. But over between 65 and 85 in retirement, the average retiree needs about $200,000 to cover medical expenses. $200,000 for medical expenses. It blew me away. It's a lot of money, but I think my generation, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, are going to be paying a lot more if our medical system remains the same, because medical technology continues to advance. But what was striking about that $200,000 number for baby boomers is that's $200,000 that person could have been using to have fun, travel, dine out, live their lives, really enjoy, versus giving it over to the medical industrial complex. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I have for my younger clients is please take care of your health. You don't want to be giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to doctors, pharmaceuticals, and to the medical industrial complex. It really is a huge waste of money, resources, and retirement. Okay. Next are emergencies. Now, a lot of people try to go into retirement without an emergency fund because they consider their 401k or their IRA to be their emergency fund. I will tell you again and again, your 401k and your IRAs are not your emergency fund. They are your retirement funds. You need to have a fully liquid and fully accessible emergency fund that is outside of retirement that you can access within 24 to 48 hours in case you run across a very serious emergency and need to access that money immediately. So emergencies happen throughout life. Things happen, cars break down, roofs need to be replaced, tires need to be changed out on cars, dental happenstance happen again and again throughout our lives. That doesn't stop happening just because you have turned 65. If anything, 65 and over tend to have a few more emergencies. Well, why? Because medical issues may come up more often. Your teeth may have been perfectly fine until your 60s, and then, that root canal, you need to replace fillings, you need to replace a bracket or a crown or something like that, simply because you're older and those parts tend to wear down over time. You're at home more, you're using your home more, so maybe things break more often, you're driving more, you're spending more time doing more things, whereas you used to spend 8 to 10 hours at the office. You weren't really home that much or using your car that much, but now you are. So I noticed that older people tend to have more emergencies than younger people, and they're often clustered around medical. You need to have savings outside of your IRA or 401k to handle those emergencies. Next, for unexpected expenses, this is a big one, and this really catches people off guard. Relocation. I often have a conversation when I'm planning out retirement about the person's intention for their house and the area and environment in which they are living. Some of my clients, their homes are just completely impractical for aging. They live across a 3-story townhome. They live in a building that's really difficult to access because the building is on a hill and you need to climb 5 flights of steps to get in a building. And I do have clients who live in those sorts of buildings. I can already see it, and I'm sure the client has already thought it, that at some point a move will need to be made. Now, it's hard because a lot of times a person has lived in this home or in this community for a very long time, and they really think that they're going to live the rest of their lives in this home and this community, and it just takes one fall, one slip, one trip to really rewrite that. And I often encourage clients, you don't want to wait until something adverse happens to you to start shaping your thinking about where you want to relocate. You want to be proactive, not reactive about relocation. And so I encourage people while they are healthy, while they are fit, and while they have their mobility to consider relocation versus waiting until they fall and break a hip and then have to relocate in the middle of all of that. Now, relocating in your 20s or 30s is not the same as relocating when you are 70 and have lived in a place for 30 years. It often requires a lot of time and a lot of energy. For some of my clients, we do hire professional organizers or professional movers to handle it for them. It's just so much stuff, and they have so little time that they have to sort through that they just need a professional to take the reins and do it for them. Sometimes friends, family can pitch in, but it's often a big ask for friends and family to step in and help you move out a lot of furniture and a lot of memories over the last 30 years. But it's often a huge deal and requires a lot of energy. And if the younger you can do this, the healthier you can do this, the better. Once decline sets in, whether it's physical decline, mental decline, it becomes a really daunting and overwhelming task. And sometimes it's just impossible to complete the relocation before physical problems or mental problems take over. So relocation can be expensive. If you're having professional movers and professional organizers and people come in, box up everything and move from here to there, it can cost tens, if even $20,000 or more. So make sure that you take a realistic assessment of your house when you are younger and nearing retirement, and have realistic plans for that house. If you're living in a 3-story townhome, that's probably not going to work for you when you're 85. Maybe it makes more sense to move at 65 than trying to organize a move at 85. Finally, one huge unexpected retirement expense is grown children. I have seen many a grown children or many a grown child basically torpedo their parents' retirement and basically obliterate their parents' retirement. And it's a function of many different things. It's the personal dynamics between the parent and the child. Some children are doing just fine. Some children, it's a failure to launch and they just never really become financially self-sufficient. Some children just think that the parents owe them something indefinitely and use their parents as a piggy bank. It often requires having strong boundaries with children and being able to say no. I often suggest, especially in families where you have colorful family dynamics, that at or nearing retirement, conversations are had with children with what you can and can't do and what you will and won't do. If you're willing to provide for that child's first home, a wedding, and their education, then spelling that out up front can make sense. If you can't provide for any of those things, drawing a boundary and saying, look, I'm retiring. I've been able to help you so far, but because I don't have a steady income anymore, I can no longer provide that level of support to you, really makes sense and really heads off a lot of problems. One of my most sincere values as a financial advisor is acting as an intercessor between parents and children. I do have some parents and children who have boundary issues with money, and I tell my clients, look, just put it off on me. Just say, hey, my financial advisor said that you can't give me money, and if the kid has a problem, let them call me, because I have no problem telling Junior no versus mom and dad that has a very conflicted history with Junior telling him no. So sometimes the value of a financial advisor is just being an intercessor between you and your children and reinforcing a boundary that has already been established, that no, mom and dad cannot continue giving you money as an adult. So there you have it. 5 unexpected retirement expenses that take a lot of retirees by surprise. What are some of your unexpected retirement expenses? Tell me what you think, tell me what you like, and tell me what you don't like. And if you found this information useful, please like, share, and subscribe.